Okay, our domain is ready. Now it's time to create an API. So in the controllers folder, I'm going to add a new C# class, call it photos controller. I want to have a separate controller because here we're going to have actions for uploading and deleting photos. And I don't want to put these inside the vehicles controller. So first we're going to derive this from the base controller class. Then we're going to define a new method that returns iActionResult, and we call this upload. Now, because we're creating a new file, we should decorate this method with the HTTP post attribute. Now, in terms of the routing, I want all the actions in this controller to respond to an endpoint like this. So vehicles, let's say vehicle 1/photos. So we can post to this collection, or we can send an HTTP delete to this endpoint. Okay, so we're going to apply the route attribute on the controller. Our base route is /API/vehicles. Here we add vehicle ID and /photos. Now, because we have a parameter in our route, we need to add that parameter in our upload action. So integer vehicle ID. Now here we also need the data for the uploaded file. In ASP.NET Core, we have an interface called iFormFile. Let's call this file and import the namespace. So if you want to upload one file, you use iFormFile. If you want to upload multiple files, you use iFormCollection. Now here we're going to use iFormFile. So in this action, first we want to implement the happy path, and then we'll look at the edge cases. So in terms of the storage, we want to store this file inside our .root folder. So this is a publicly accessible folder in our application. Under .root, we're going to create a new folder called uploads, and all files will be stored here. Now in a larger application, you may want to organize your files differently. For example, you may want to have a folder per vehicle and add all the photos for that vehicle inside that folder. This is purely organizational, and it doesn't make much of a difference in terms of the content of this section. So let's keep it simple and store all files inside the uploads folder. Now we need to get the path to this folder. For that, we need to use an interface called iHostingEnvironment. So I'm going to add a constructor here. Photos controller takes iHostingEnvironment. And let's call this host. Let's bring the namespace and initialize field from parameter. Beautiful. Now look here, we can get the application name, we can get the content root path, we can get the environment, we have methods to see if we are in development, production, or staging environment. We also have a property called webroot path, which returns the address of our root folder. So in our upload action, I'm going to use the path class, which is defined in system.io, and combine host.webroot path with uploads. Now we store the result in a variable called uploads folder path. So this will return the exact path on the hosting machine. It could be something like C drive /root /whatever. So we have the uploads folder. Now, if this folder doesn't exist, we want to create it, because the first time we deploy this application to a new hosting environment, we don't want to manually create this folder. So if directory exist uploads folder path, here I'm going to apply the not operator, and then directory.create directory uploads folder path. Pretty simple. Now we want to generate a new file name, and this is for security best practices. So you should never trust the file name that the user sends, because a hacker can modify the request and change the file name on the fly. So they may upload a file, let's call it file.png, but in the request, they can change it to something like this. So they get out of the application directory, and then they go, let's say, to Windows folder and to system, and let's say whatever DLL, they can overwrite that. So we should always generate a new file name. Now the simplest solution is to use a GUID. So I'm going to set file name to GUID. Let's import the namespace. .new GUID. .toString. So this is a file name. Now we need to add the extension. And I want to use the same extension of the original file. So if it's a PNG, we're going to use PNG. Now you might ask, what if the user uploads an executable file? Well, that falls under validation, and we're going to look at that later. So here, to get the extension of the file, we use path.getExtension. And here we can use our file object .file name. Okay? So now we have a new file name. Now we want to get the path to this file inside the uploads folder. So once again, path.combine uploads folder path with file name. And we can store the result in file path variable. All right, next, we're going to use a stream to read the input file and store it at this path. So using var stream, we set this to a new file stream. Now the first argument is the path, and the second argument is the file mode enumeration. And we're going to use the create mode. So now we have a new stream. We can use this file object. Here we have a method copy to and copy to async. We can copy this into our stream. And of course, we need to await this, which means we should make this action async and change its type, its return type, to return a task. So at this point, we store the file in our file system. Now there is another step involved here, and that is generation of a thumbnail or multiple thumbnails with different sizes. However, at the time of recording this video, we don't have system.drawing namespace in .NET Core. So we don't have classes to work with images. Now I'm pretty sure this is going to come in .NET Core at some point in the future. For the purpose of this section, don't get hung up on the creation of a thumbnail. It's super easy. If you simply search on Stack Overflow, you will find 10 examples. You can write a simple method to read an image and generate a thumbnail. And then you can save it somewhere else on the disk. So in this application, we want to assume that all images are small. So we have stored the file in the file system. Now we need to update the database. So let's create a new photo object. New photo. Set the file name to this file name variable here. Now we should add this to our vehicle. So first we need to get the vehicle with the given ID. Now back to the top of this action. We're going to get this vehicle from our repository. So let's add iVehicle repository here and call it repository. Initialize field from parameter. Beautiful. Now here, repository dot get vehicle. We're going to pass this vehicle ID argument here. And also we want to set include related to false. Because at this point, I don't want to load an entire vehicle object. So if we don't have a vehicle with this ID, we want to return the not found message. So if vehicle is null, return not found. Now, once again, this falls under validation, but there are more edge cases and we're going to revisit them later in this section. So we have a vehicle. Then we can set vehicle.photos.add photo. We have a compilation error here because I forgot to apply the await keyword here. Now finally, we need to save the changes. And for that, we need our unit of work. So back in the constructor, we're going to add iUnit of work and call it unit of work. Initialize the field. Beautiful. So here, unit of work dot complete async, and we await it. Now finally, we need to return the response. For that, we're going to create a resource class. So in resources, add a new C# class, photo resource. Now I'm going to copy the properties from the photo class into this new class. So photo, simply copy these two properties. And we don't need these data annotations. So now that we have this resource class, we need to set up the mapping. So let's go to mapping profile. A new map, create map. between photo and photo resource. Okay. Now back in our controller, in order to map this photo object to a photo resource, we need to use AutoMapper. So in the constructor, iMapper interface. And let's quickly initialize this. Okay. So finally return mapper.map photo to photo resource. And we give it this photo object. And finally, let's import this namespace. All right, we have a compilation error because I forgot to put this OK method here.